This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Ime Diego here with my co-host Nabila Usman. Today on News Extra, we focus on the case of French far-right leader Marine Le Pen, who has been sentenced by a French court to a jail term and barred for 5 years from seeking public office after the French court found her guilty of embezzling European Union funds. Le Pen's sentencing has shocked political figures within and outside France, from the Kremlin to Washington, D.C., and raised questions about the independence of the French judiciary. Joining the conversation on News Extra is Dorit Geva, a professor of politics and gender at the University of Vienna. Professor Geva, thank you so much for joining us on the conversation.
Good morning.
We're glad to have you with us, Professor Geva. To jump right into it, it's been a few days since the judgment against the far-right leader. Have the reactions from the different quarters changed?
The reactions within the different quarters in France have been fairly consistent. There is a lot of outrage on the streets of France from a variety of political corners, from left to right, and a lot of defiance from within the party of Marine Le Pen, including, for example, a big rally which just took place in Paris yesterday, which has been a very defiant show of resistance to the ruling and a claim that it has been politically motivated.
So to jump on the angle of political motivation, we will, of course, be seeing changes to the leadership of, at least as far as the far right is concerned, in terms of them running for office in 2027. I wonder if these allegations of that Marine Le Pen is facing, what sort of reflection they have on political accountability in France.
Well, they reflect a commitment in France to deepen the judicial oversight of political corruption following reforms that took place in the year 2017. But it needs to be said that actually France has a fairly good record of judicial oversight over corruption. On the one hand, there has been a long history of political corruption, but also very prominent figures, mainstream figures prior to Marine Le Pen have been convicted of various political corruption schemes, including even former President Jacques Chirac, another former President Nicolas Sarkozy, from the center-right. These were both very mainstream center-right political figures who were convicted by the judiciary for political corruption. And so there was a sense already, even 10 years ago, that there was a need to deepen the oversight because the corruption was not going away. And so there have been reforms, and this case involving Marine Le Pen is the latest outcome of this deepening of a desire to lessen political corruption, whether it's embezzlement or inappropriate political influences, secret deals behind the scenes between politicians and businessmen. That there's a desire to lessen them. So. All in all, this is a case where certainly this was an extreme case with the story of Marine Le Pen, because what she and her party were convicted of was 12 years of embezzlement. I mean, that's a very long period, not sort of single deals that were done with business people. So it's a very serious corruption case. It was a very meticulous review process, and it is reflected also in a lot of the French public supporting the conviction because people are tired of corruption.
So, Professor, let's take the conversation outside of France. This is EU funds, and there are three leaders that show us, three different levels of engagement. We'll start with Hungary's Viktor Orban within the EU. Step outside of the EU and stay with Europe, and you go to Vladimir Putin's own reaction. And then outside of Europe, you've got the US's own reaction from the US President Donald Trump. All three seem to be in agreement that this is the far left, if you like, threatening democracy. To what extent would you say that their reactions are valid? Are they reflected, even if it's in a little part of or little portion of France's own population?
Well, internally to France, at least, their views, the notion that the conviction is politically motivated looks to be not a popular view broadly within France. The French public and even people who had voted and probably will continue to vote for Marine Le Pen's party largely accept that the judiciary is independent. Again, that it was a very long, slow, meticulous review process with a lot of a very long, extensive, complex investigation. That magistrates, that's the term for these kind of investigative judges in France, are independent. It's a bureaucracy in France, which means, like we all know with bureaucracy, it moves slowly, but it proved to be very independent. And so I wouldn't say that the position of Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin or Viktor Orban and their allegations that this has been a politically motivated conviction, it is not broadly accepted in France among the general population. Certainly the diehards, the Marine Le Pen fanatics, are outraged and do agree with the assessment by figures like Vladimir Putin and Viktor Orban that this was a politically motivated conviction. But these are seen as outside voices that don't help, I would say, Marine Le Pen's case in France, broadly speaking.
So, the current president, Emmanuel Macron, he has in many ways lost favor in the sight of the people, including when we saw the parliamentary elections in France and seeing his party lose its majority footing. Expectations from the outside were that Marine Le Pen would be able to spur her party to the center in the next presidential elections. What do you think this means for their political influence? Do you think that her would-be successor, or I don't know whether to describe him as her successor, but Jordan Bardella, does he have enough to continue to drive the momentum she's been able to build up? And do you see them inching out Macron and his party from the center in the next round of elections?
These sudden events, this conviction, I think is a serious crisis for the party, for the national rally, for Marine Le Pen's party. Jordan Bardella was definitely being cultivated by Marine Le Pen with a view towards long-term future leadership. Marine Le Pen has been extremely strategic. This is a very gifted politician. She grew up in politics, and she understands, having grown up from within politics, because it was her father who founded the party, that elections, that politics can be a very long-term game. So on the one hand, there is a replacement candidate, Jordan Bardella, who was seen as the protege who would pick up the mantles of the party when it was his time. But it is not quite his time. It is too early. So I don't think that he has the gravitas, the legitimacy, the respect, the weight that Marine Le Pen succeeded in establishing for herself in her own reputation. There is the aspect of his youth. And yes, his youth has been extremely, Jordan Bardella, his youth has been critical in bringing in a new generation of supporters. He's very savvy. He's very handsome. He knows how to take selfies very effectively. But to translate that into looking like a real legitimate presidential candidate is a huge gap. So I do not see, at least in the next years, I don't see Jordan Bardella being able to immediately fill in the very large shoes of Marine Le Pen. But I wouldn't say that the fate of the party is over, because we must remember and expect that Marine Le Pen will return to politics. She can. She'll have to wait it out for 5 years. So I don't think that the story of the National Rally is over. It's just that I think they'll be in crisis in the immediate few years.
I mean, we hear that she's expected to appeal the judgment, even though, as I understand it, the appeal process could take at least 2 years. Speak to us. Let's talk about the other side of your specialty, which is gender. Does this in any way have any bearing on gender perception or even outcomes in political processes in France?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, one of Marine Le Pen's kind of secret weapons, if you will, was the fact that she's a woman, which initially in France was a problem, because actually France has a very low record of women at the very top of party politics. There's never been a woman president in France. And so the fact of being a woman was really something that played actually to Marine Le Pen's base, because it enabled her to look like an outsider, like somebody from the outside who was unlike all these men, who were just more of the same. And that what she also brought was a kind of integrity and care of a mother looking after her children, which was something that she would, in her political campaigns, they were very explicit about this kind of imagery of the woman, the mother who really wants to fight for security and the well-being of the future of the children of France. And so this was a kind of superpower, like I said, a kind of secret superpower of hers. Interestingly, I think the outcome of this will be that being a woman now will look like nothing different, that the women are just as prone to political corruption as the men. Marine Le Pen now will stand side by side with figures like Nicolas Sarkozy and Jacques Chirac, so male politicians who were also convicted of political corruption.
Professor, we've got a few minutes to wrap up, but with Macron losing public favor and Le Pen hit by this verdict, which other party is a potential winner of the recent developments?
Possibly the leftist party, La France Insoumise, which is also the other French populist party, but a left-wing populist party, and I think it's a possibility that they will pick up very much on the kind of leftovers of the disenchantment, both with mainstream center-right, center-left parties, but also now disenchantment with what the National Rally had to offer. Now that it looks more like these older established parties. So I think it's possible that it will really be the left-wing populists who will be able to benefit the most from this scandal.
Professor, thank you very much for your time and expertise on this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Professor Dorit Geva is a professor of politics and gender at the University of Vienna in Austria. She joined us on News Extra to speak on the court verdict that will see French far-right politician Marine Le Pen barred from seeking public office for the next 5 years, as well as facing a jail term. Now, while this is still a happening conversation, Marine Le Pen still has an appeal process that we'll continue to monitor and bring you details as we receive them. But this is how far we go on News Extra today on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. We urge you to stay tuned to your Beyond the News station. We open up the front pages of our dailies in a few short moments on the News Review.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.